Up next, I am thrilled. It is my true pleasure to welcome to the microphone Andy Ramgobin, who's the CEO of a company called CodeZero. Andy, welcome.
Hi, Sean. How are you?
I am so stoked. Stoked, is that what the kids say, Andy? I don't know. Maybe I'm dating myself to have you on the program today because I have been reading and looking at a lot about what CodeZero is up to. But to have the voice of authority with me today is just, it's the creme de la creme. It's the cherry on top of the sundae. So I'm so excited for you to be here today, Andy.
It's a privilege for me to be here as well, Sean.
Andy, tell the audience a little bit more about what CodeZero does and is, and the partnerships. I think is what I really find interesting too. Is the partnerships with CodeZero.
So CodeZero is a self-funded tech startup. We predominantly focus on data science, data engineering, and data warehousing. So really helping customers go on that AI, ML, HPC journey. We're very big on responsible AI and sustainable AI. And what I mean by those things is making sure that we're optimizing end to end, not just the data science process, but the hardware, compute, storage, power, networking. And then when we talk about sustainable AI, we're making sure that we're doing it in a sustainable manner, that we can look after the planet whilst helping businesses transform and innovate. In terms of our partnerships, well, Nutanix is obviously a key partnership for us. We work really closely with the server OEMs. We've chosen Nutanix to be the fabric underlay for all of our AI, ML, and HPC platforms. And that makes up part of our enterprise software and solution stack. And then when we talk about things like immersion cooling, we tend to partner with Green Revolution Cooling, and then BP Castrol and Shell, who make the immersion fluids.
Gotcha. And I think I love to hear that when companies talk about the sustainability aspect and doing what's right in a green manner for the earth, because it's so critical that we take that approach today. So thank you guys for focusing in on that. I understand that CodeZero has been doing quite a bit with this GPT in a box product that came to market. Can you tell me about that?
Absolutely. So we're really passionate about working with Nutanix on GPT in a box. Obviously, the emergence of ChatGPT meant that many businesses all around the world have become a lot more familiar with chatbots and large language models. And we actually looked at a particular test drive lab from Nutanix where it showcased GPT in a box being used on premise. And then GPT in a box being used in public cloud. And what we wanted to do is really conceptualize that lab and bring it to life. So we worked with our immersion cluster in the UK, which was fully funded by Dell and Intel. We were the first people to immerse Nutanix software onto our hardware in our immersion tank. And we trained a Meta Llama 3 model using GPT in a box to create a chatbot. And then we were able to push that chatbot to mirrored infrastructure in AWS using Nutanix Cloud Clusters, or NC2. And we were able to simulate the ability to train a model at the data center in our private cloud instance, push that model to AWS, push it back to the data center to retrain and fine tune that model, and then put it back out to AWS. And we recorded all of this in videos. It's on our website. And it's a real passion project for us because we've been able to use on-premise infrastructure, create the first in the world hybrid cloud immersion platform, which was supported by AWS, and ties directly into something that's really big at the moment, which is being able to deliver bespoke chatbots using large language models.
And it's so interesting that you describe it that way. And this opens up an opportunity for me just to dig a little deeper in this, because that process that you describe about moving it, the models themselves from, a private data center to the public cloud back again, that gliding, method, if you will, it's something I personally call power glide. But I wanted to come back and also to ask you, because you have so much experience with AI out in the field at your customers, what are you now seeing as those top 3 use use cases for enterprise AI?
I think the first one, Sean, is large language models, and I think Nutanix have been very smart in terms of the release of GPT in a box. And I think again, going back to the fact that ChatGPT has made AI more consumable for a lot of businesses. So customers are always talking to us about what kind of chatbot they can build. How can they transform customer service, transform innovation, transform user service, and that centers around large language models. I think the second one for us is a bit of a niche one for a lot of people, is computational fluid dynamics. We call that CFD. This is by measuring and making calculations for liquid flow, airflow, things very much like aerodynamics. And this can be applied to many, many different organizations. And then the third one is data warehousing. So a lot of customers have taken that jump into the likes of Databricks or the likes of Snowflake. And I'm a technology guy. I live it and breathe it. I love both of those companies. But actually customers are really struggling to get their heads around a data lake and a data warehouse. And, we're now talking about lake houses. And I think, we need to really just strip it right back and go back to the basics with the customer around understanding their data landscape, understanding how we collect that data and understanding how we then compile and centralize that data. So we're doing a huge amount of work around data warehousing, because without a data warehouse, you're not going to get very far. With AI and ML, and without data science, a GPU is useless. So everyone going around and purchasing mass amounts of GPUs at the moment, if you don't have the data science and data engineering capabilities and data warehousing capabilities at your disposal, you're not going to be able to derive any value out of that GPU.
Yeah, and I absolutely hear you on that. And I know that you've been doing a lot of work with Nutanix Unified Storage too, and the file and object and block storage, management. And you have a great quote that I love, and I have it as a tattoo. I'm not going to tell you where. I can't show it on this program here. But your quote is, "If we're not careful, data will become the new plastic." And that's a great quote. And I want to know, Andy, what, again, given that you are the trusted advisor out in the field and you're doing this stuff in reality, in real time, do you have a methodology that you approach these projects with, something that, is a prescribed methodology?
Absolutely, and you won't be able to see, but that's written down on my rather large whiteboard behind me. And I've personally been in IT for 14 years, covering every area you can possibly think of, and every project, whether it's AI, networking, observability, infrastructure, it should always start with discovery. Discovery is the most important part of any project, and when we charge for a discovery workshop, and it is chargeable because ultimately there's a huge amount of value in discovery and it's not to be overlooked. We're really centering around key stakeholder workshops. So before you can do anything with AI and machine learning, you have to have a defined business goal. And really we start to try and ratify with the customer, what is that business goal? And we start there and we will work backwards. And I think from understanding, the business goal, we then have to understand, what does the current data landscape look like for the customer? How are they collecting that data? How are they storing that data? More importantly, how much of that data is rot, redundant, obsolete, and trivial? And if we want to stop data becoming the new plastic, then there's no point us making huge amounts of complex calculations on data that isn't meaningful to the overall goal. So I think that's really important. We then take the customer on a journey through a data design plan, and that will be things like classifying their data, helping them to understand the variables of their data, and tagging that data. And then once we've done that, we can start to look at, does the customer have the required data? So out of that first party data that customer natively has, is that data going to allow them to execute against that goal? If not, we then have to understand a data acquisition plan. So how do you go about acquiring the data that you're missing, almost like a gap analysis? And out of all of this comes usually 3 proof of concepts, where we can say to a customer, we understand your business goal. Here are a number of different proof of concepts that we can run concurrently with you to prove out the concept. We then move to a proof of value, and it's really important for customers to understand there's a big demarc and difference between proof of concepts and proof of value. Proof of concept is just proving something generic that it works. A proof of value is showing a business, what does this mean to you? How are we going to add value with this technology? And then moving to research and development, and then rolling that out into production.
Yeah. And that is so key. And it is. Data is key and critical piece of any AI project or deployment, as well as, the LLMs, of course, that are publicly available and on repositories like Hugging Face, but your own data and making sure that it's accurate, up to date, and isn't going to provide hallucinations or incorrect answers. Spot on with that. And like I like to say, AI, generative AI, approaches data like I approach the all-you-can-eat buffet. It just consumes and consumes, whether it's good or beneficial or not. It just consumes everything. And so it's so good to hear that CodeZero has that pragmatic approach to it. But Andy, now that Andy Ramgobin is Nutanix famous on this webinar, how do people get in touch with you, with CodeZero, if they want to follow up?
I think the easiest thing is to go to our website, and that's www.codezerogroup.com. I'm a big proponent of thought leadership content, so I've written data science magazines that tie directly into what we've just talked about in terms of educating C-level executives and stakeholders on what data science is, how to align your strategy with data scientists to make sure that you derive that value. But we've got content on absolutely everything. So the install of the Immersion platform in the UK, from us dunking the servers, to us running GPT in a box on what we called Nutheia, which was our AWS and Nutanix project. We've rendered Unreal Engine on Nutanix, and so we've got a plethora of content for customers to consume, and that's all on our website. The best place to get in contact with us as a business is definitely the website. Best place to get in contact with me would be LinkedIn.
Perfect. Excellent to hear. I want to thank you, Andy, for joining us here today. What a great conversation about how CodeZero approaches enterprise AI and the data that feeds it. So thank you, Andy, for joining us here today. Well, that does it for this webinar today. Thank you all for attending. I know how valuable your time is, and the fact that you took an hour out of your calendar to join us today is so appreciated. So thank you for attending. Now, by attending this webinar, you qualify to receive a free email. And in that email is going to be a list of valuable resources that you can take advantage of. But if you can't wait for that email, navigate over to Nutanix.com/AI, and you'll have a list of resources at your fingertips that you can peruse today. So thank you again for attending this show, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.